What's the scariest moment that's ever happened to you?
I went to Ohio State Reformatory. It's an old prison that they've since rebuilt it, but it was built in the 1800s, I believe, and they used it for prisoners of war. And there was a lot of torture and a lot of death that went on in there. And we did a overnight tour type of ghost hunt. And at the time, if you dared me to jump off a building, I would have done it. I was that foolhardy. And so I was dared to sit in a cell by myself for an hour. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I mean, what are they going to do to me? They're dead. So I went and I sat in the cell, and as God is my witness, I heard things and I saw things walk by down the tier and down the hallway that it definitely put the fear of God and scared the shit out of me. And when they came back to get me, I literally was just sitting there with a blank face, look on my face going like, did that really just happen or was I asleep? Because I would see shadows and flickers of light and hear people talking, and I would smell cigarettes, and it was really eye-opening. And I think that was also the day that really kind of stuck in my head is just like, I want to know more. I want to see more. There's so much more going on here. It scared the hell out of me, but yet it also opened up the curiosity.
You've got this like kind of obsession almost with like investigating these like haunted areas or like objects and things like that. But I'm sure anybody that hears like any of your stories from your podcast of like these experiences you go on, they probably would be interested in it, which is kind of weird to me because people are so drawn to fear now. Well, I don't understand what it is because evolutionary, like we're pretty much built to avoid fear. Fear means danger, so we avoid it at any cost. But what do you think draws people to this fear? Because you are clearly one of the people that are drawn to it.
Honestly, I think it's the interest in fear and excitement and adrenaline has always been there. If you look back in the 70s, you had Evil Knievel, who was an adrenaline junkie before that term was ever coined, adrenaline junkie. And you had the Warrens who did ghost hunting and, spiritual stuff and demonology and everything back in the 60s and the 70s. So it's always been there. I just think it's more popular now and draws more people in now because it's socially acceptable. That and the invention of the internet and social media, it makes everything right in front of you. Like right now on Netflix, they have here in America, they have the Ed Gein
Don't
story on
spoil it for me.
Netflix.
I haven't watched it yet.
I
I am
won't.
so excited to watch it.
I just watched it. I tell you, there's so many things on that I didn't even know about, and I've researched the guy. And once again, it just proves my point that it's just so easily accessible to press a button and you can get the get the crap scared out of you. And I think because of the ease of it, that it's become the norm, and either you like it or you don't, just like anything else. But it's everything is so readily accessible. You can go on YouTube and type in "show me a ghost" and you'll have thousands and thousands and thousands of videos come up, and it's just there, and it just piques curiosity. It's human nature to be curious.
There's a theory from like the 1960s, like the optimal arousal theory. And it's quite funny how like it was made in the 1960s, but I think now it's probably the most effective because everybody's looking for like stimulation or dopamine in some way. They want something that's going to give them that feeling. And apparently fear or the feelings around horror hit that sweet spot perfectly. They almost scratch it without
Sure.
giving you the feeling that you've accomplished something. That's probably where it's coming now. But do you remember the first time you realized that fear was addictive or when it became addictive to you even?
I would probably say back when I went to the prison, I sat there for an hour, and I'm not afraid to admit it or ashamed to admit it, but I was scared. Anybody who says on their first haunt or their first experience isn't scared or stupefied or whatever, they're lying to you. Because if you've never experienced something like that, how do you know how to act? But at the same time, even though it scared me, like you were saying, I probably got that rush of dopamine or the adrenaline rush of, oh man, this is scary. This is kind of cool right then and there too. And I would probably say that's when I first got hooked by it.
In your line of work, it's quite easy for people to be a little bit reckless around these topics, around the subject. Like you mentioned, like the reenactments of monsters and stuff. It's easy to be a little bit over the edge, but what's the difference between being curious and being reckless? Because it is like a fine line.
I totally agree. And it's funny you asked that question because Dawn and I recently were talking about this. And there's certain lines that myself, as being a paranormalist or whatever you want to label me as, is that I won't cross. Like I will not cross into demonology just because I- I'm not going to open that door.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this to see the devil or be part of that. It's, there's certain things that I don't understand and society doesn't understand because we're not there. And, in realistic terms, who really has a full grasp or an understanding of paranormal and what goes on after you pass away? None of us do. And you watch a lot of these ghost hunting shows where they go on there and they, for lack of better words, they're assholes. They're like, show yourself, or they'll do things to aggravate spirits and stuff like that. And I can't speak for them, but I myself have had spirits follow me home and I've had to cleanse myself and deal with that. And sure as shit, I don't want a demon spirit following me home and just wreak havoc all over my life. I've seen enough scary movies that even if a portion of that is true, let's say The Conjuring, even if a portion of that is true, I don't want any part of that. That's, you can have that. Let me have the mother who died and misses her kids, or the grandfather that left the insurance policy hidden and wants to tell somebody. I'll deal with those kind of ghosts. The other ones, I don't want any part of that. And I've been on hunts with people that have done that. They've intentionally went out there to antagonize and create issues because they think they're going to get a better response. Well, if that's the response you want, don't invite me because I'm not coming. I if the spirit don't want to talk to me, that's fine. I got nothing to say to it either, but I sure as hell don't want to piss them off.
You like almost run towards the fear. Like it's almost like your curiosity pushes you towards that fear more. And from the outside looking in, that would by definition make you fearless. So I want to know this about you because you clearly have no problem going to these things that are a little bit more unknown. Like you said about like this like hunt that you were on originally in the prison. Like you clearly had no problem doing it. You were just a little bit scared in the moment. But I want to kind of reflect a little bit back into like kind of your earlier years of when you had some heart complications and you had some heart surgeries and stuff. Do you think that impacted this more fearless approach towards these things, or a little bit more unknown?
I don't like to use the word fearless because every haunt I go to, I'm cautious and I'm concerned. And there's always that bit of fear in there because that's what brings the adrenaline. So I've always got fear in the back of my mind, but I just don't let it stop me. And I think a lot of that is because just the way I was brought up was you have to face your fears. You have to face what's stopping you. And if you live your life being fearful of something, you'll never accomplish anything because you're always wondering what if. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life, no matter how long or short it is, wondering what if. I want to know, what's on the other side of the street? What's behind that door? For me to sit there and spend all this time and all this effort to go and do something and then stand at a doorway that I'm hearing shit behind and not open it, it would kill me. It literally would, because for the rest of my life, I'm wondering, was somebody playing a joke? Was there really something there? Was it my imagination? And the not knowing to me is worse than actually knowing, I think, if that makes sense.
I think that's the reason why I'm so hooked on documentaries. Most of the time, it's not even really about the story. It's something in the setup, the little like 2-line blurb that just got me hooked. And I know if I don't click and find out what happened here, I'm gonna just think about it for months and months. Like that, I can't even remember the name of it now. The catfish documentary on Netflix with the two kids at school and keep getting messages from a random number. I sat and looked at that
Yeah.
for weeks and was like, I'm not going to watch it because everybody's watching it and it's just going to be not as good as it actually is made out to be. But it drove me insane because the title keeps saying catfish from within. And I was literally like at work, hands on my head, like I need to get this watched. And then I eventually did watch it, and And I almost wish I didn't because now all my trust issues are completely broken.
It's like the really bad scary movie, like a B movie, like Sleepaway Slumber Camp or something, that is just god awful terrible. But you got to sit through it because you're curious. This is like, okay, how's this going to end? So you waste an hour and a half of your life just to satisfy your own mind. And it's the same thing, it's curiosity. That what's that saying? Curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
I'm always curious. I always want to know more. I never think that I know it all. And that's I think why I'm so successful in doing this and enjoying it is because I want to know. I want somebody to tell me. I want someone to show me or teach me. And I don't go in closed minded thinking I know everything. I have my little EMF meters and everything that flash and go boom. Okay, tell me why they're doing it. I don't know. I want to know. And I think that's what keeps it exciting and fun for me is I have an open mind and I love to learn and I love to learn from other people. And what I really, really love is when you get people that think they know it all and they come and they try to tell you things. And I'm a respectful guy and I'll just sit there and smile and let them talk. And in the back of my mind, say, man, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? And just makes it a little more fun.
For anybody that doesn't know what that little thing he held up was, it's pretty much Tinder for ghosts.
Yeah, we've got that. And we've also got the little EMF meters too.
But people are going to see those things and they're going to picture the exact thing I'm picturing in my head is in those movies when people are walking around with the big thing and it picks up voices and stuff and starts going crazy. But it's easy to not believe because it is so ridiculous. You do this for a living now. Like people obviously don't believe things and they come to you with it. But do you have any stories that even like skeptics would have trouble dismissing straight away?
Well, there's one recently, and I talked about spirits following us home. That Dawn and I, up here where we're at in northern Arizona, we went on a ghost walking tour and we went by this hotel called the Weatherford in Flagstaff, Arizona. And it's truly haunted. This whole city of Flagstaff, Arizona is ridiculously haunted. But this one, there's a story about a little boy who passed away there. His name was Algeron. And for the life of me, I could not remember the name Algeron. I'm like, what kind of name is that? So for the next, I heard the ghost story about him in the whole 9 yards, and it's like, okay, well that's a good story. But for whatever reason, it stuck with me, and I kept asking the tour guide, "What's this kid's name again?" I was just obsessed with it. By the end of the tour, I kept saying his name, Algeron, Algeron, Algeron. And I guess it was kind of like a Beetlejuice thing because I said it too many times. And on the way home, Dawn started getting sick to her stomach, and we couldn't figure out why. We get home and she's still feeling nauseated and just not feeling good at all. And I'm still obsessed with this kid Algeron and his name and how to say it. And by this time, I've already Googled it and I'm trying to find more information, and I was just obsessed over it. So we're home and it's time to go to bed and she's just real sick, and I'm trying to turn the TV on and it keeps flickering on and off and on and off and on and off, and it didn't make sense. Well, in the house we lived in at the time, we've since moved, I have little cat balls that if you touch them the light flickers, and they're used for ghost hunting. I had them all over the house because that house had entities in it as well, and these little balls would start flashing lights for no reason whatsoever because we were not near touching them. And you have the TV going on and off, you have Dawn being sick, and you have these little cat balls going off, and me being obsessed with Algeron. Well, whether a coincidence or not, I don't know, but I've had people tell me I was nuts and, ridiculous, but it dawned on me that maybe something attached itself to us. And I legitimately said, and I truly from the heart meant it. I says, Algeron, if this is you that's followed us home, I meant no disrespect to you. I'm curious about your story and I just want to learn more. And I'm sorry if I upset you. Almost instantly, the TV turned on by itself. The little cat balls stopped flashing, and Dawn goes, "You know what? I'm feeling better." And she got better. So Was it all a coincidence or did it actually happen? I was there, I witnessed it, and I know what I said, and I know what I did. And there's people that come up and say, "Oh, you're full of shit. Show me video. Show me this." I'm like, dude, I don't have any. This is just me telling you what I've experienced. You take it for what it's worth. And, that just once again solidified what I believe about the afterlife or paranormal or whatever you want to call it. And every time I question things and say, well, this can't be true. This can't be happening, something along those lines will happen to me or to us. And it brings it right back home. There's so much I don't know, and there's so much going on that I want to know. And it's just like, I can't wait for tomorrow to find something else to dig into.
How has like science not came up with an explanation for why things like that happen? Like, there's so many different reasons now for like scientifically why like the body works in a certain way or why certain foods make you feel a certain way. How is there no science for this yet? Or do you know even from like the inside if there's any advancements on it or anything?
There's always scientific answers for everything. Anything paranormal can be contributed to a scientific reason or reasoning, I guess you can call it. I guess it goes beyond that to the person. If you're a true scientist, you don't believe in heaven and hell, you don't believe in purgatory, you don't believe in creation, and it's the Big Bang Theory and the whole nine yards. So you eliminate automatically that result out of the equation. But if you have an open mind, or science is, it's like doctors, they're practicing. When you go in there, I'm practicing medicine. Well, that's the same thing with science. We're always learning. Science has come along so far. That's why we have so many of the cool little toys that detects paranormal and makes things go off. But it also goes back to the simplest things like the EMF meter that picks up electromagnetic frequencies. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you have frequencies coming in and going out. But where how you define them, I guess that's where it comes from. So yes, science has helped. It's also helped to debunk a lot of things too. But like what happened to me with Algeron, science could debunk that easily. Absolutely. You have power fluctuations and we have lots of EMF going off, which EMF, lots amounts of it can make a person sick, which is why Dawn got sick. You can dissect all that and discount it as well. But to live through that or see something like that, it's real. It's real. And science can say whatever they want to say. And I love to hear their responses to it, but I don't think we'll ever know, just simply because nobody's died and come back 3 days later and talked about it. And there's no way we can know. There's a lot of people that YouTube it that have died and said they've experienced things and this is what they've saw and everything. And a lot of it correlates. Can you back it up with science? Nope, absolutely not, because it doesn't make sense. So, it's whatever I guess it's what you want to believe and how much faith you have and what's coming up and what's out there. Science is a great tool, but it can't fix or describe everything.
Yeah, it's almost like as the years go on, you feel more pity for like the believers and stuff because we live in like the information era, which is good obviously because we do get answers to a lot of questions and stuff. Problem is, if you search hard enough, you'll find a group of people that agree with you, no matter if you're right or wrong. And it applies to this,
Exactly.
like you mentioned about the science, like it could debunk it. There also is probably people that could prove it was real too. Like you're never going to get a direct answer because there's so many people now on both sides, and they're never going to come to a conclusion, really, are they?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those things that's you have to believe what you want to believe. And if you're persuaded by people one way, you're gonna believe that or the other way. And it's all what you want. And like we had talked about earlier, I have an open mind about everything. And I'm open. And I think again, that's why I have no issues or problems or anything, because I'm open-minded. If somebody tells me that's demonic, I'm going to go the other way because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want none of that nonsense. And scientifically, I've had people tell me, you know what, this is impossible. It's like, well, yeah, you're right, it is. But it happened. I was there, I seen it. So is it a fictitious thing in my mind? I've never been on a ghost hunt. after drinking. I've never done illicit drugs or illegal drugs. So there's nothing that's ever chemically hindered me. So, scientifically, yeah, it looks good on paper, but I'm telling you, I almost shit my pants when this happens. So I don't care what science says.
Yeah, I think when people hear of like hauntings or like spirits, they automatically go to like evil spirits. And I know like the first thing that was coming to my head when you were talking about like those type of spirits was that thing on Netflix, The Devil on Trial, the kid that's possessed. And I know like you don't open that door, but that was fascinating to me just for the spirit context. But it
Sure.
got me interested in a certain question. But the way we always go to like bad spirits or evil spirits straight away, do you think that there are bad and good, but we maybe don't look at the good because they don't kind of show themselves as much?
Absolutely. I don't know about don't show themselves as much. I think we're not looking for them as much because when people think of ghosts and haunting, you said it yourself right there. They're thinking bad. They're thinking demonic. They're not thinking about grandma who died and just misses her kids and is just unsettled. Or we don't think about the people that were accidentally shot. Like, look at Tombstone, Arizona, all the innocent people that were killed there because of gunfights. We don't think about that. We think about the demonic and we think about the bad and the evil. I think there's just as much good out there as there is bad. But honestly, the way society and movies have glorified it, I really don't want to sit through a ghost movie for an hour and a half to 2 hours to find out that grandma passed away and just wants to give us her apple pie recipe. I want something good, keep me on the edge of my seat. So I think they're out there. I just don't think people are looking for them. Where myself, I welcome it. I love it. There's a home we moved from. We did an interview with the median, June Edwards. And if you look her up, juneedwards.com, I believe is her website. She's very well known. She's worked with a lot of paranormal groups. And we had weird things that went on in the house. And while we were talking to her via this method, I believe it was Dawn that asked her, yeah, we have this in the house. She says, oh, yeah, your house is haunted by an old couple. And sure enough, I did the research and there was an old couple that passed away and that lived in the house before us. And from that moment on, I would ask questions to these ghosts and things would happen. It's so like, okay, if one of you are here, make the cat ball light up and the cat ball would light up. Or we would watch, God, I think we were watching the movie Witchboard or something along, or Ouija, or which is another thing I will not mess with
Nope,
as a Ouija
not
board.
go near it.
So yeah, that's no, but I'll watch the movie. I've watched the movie. And during that movie, I don't know if it upset the ghost or whatever. So it was really kind of bizarre.
So I want to take a little bit almost of like a break in between here talking about ghosts and hauntings and spirits to talk about this coffee ritual because it's almost like the two things shouldn't go hand in hand. It's weird. It's like they shouldn't shake, but they do. But I wanted to do some
Yeah.
research into this because like a lot of people will listen to your show will have been hooked by this link between, and I was hooked as well. And I found something about there was like behavioral scientists in Harvard that they needed to do a study on something. They needed to do something to do with stress or recentering or something like that. So they started developing almost like anxiety tics. Like they would tap their pen, they would scratch their face and stuff. And they found that people that have those almost like a ritual of doing something that's going to bring you back to ground level before you go into something that there's a lot of pressure on it or a lot of like gore or emotion around it is a good thing. It's almost like they have less stress markers because of it. So, in a weird way, is coffee like your spiritual seatbelt before you go into these darker topics?
Absolutely. And the thing about it is 90% of the times when we go ghost hunting or exploring or curiosity killing, I guess we can call it, is it's usually at night. It's usually late at night. And what's the best thing to have late at night when you've got to stay up is coffee. It just blends so well with it. Plus, it gives you that little bit of the endorphin that you need, the caffeine that wakes you up and gives you the energy and the excitement. So caffeine and coffee and ghost hunting and ghost stories, it just works. It just combines each other and they complement each other. 85% of the world drinks coffee, at least a cup a day or something caffeinated a day. And if I pass away and I'm addicted to coffee and I love coffee, I'm going to be jonesing to taste coffee when I pass away. So how could it not be combined? Or just the smell of it. It's like myself, I love walking into the roasters here in northern Arizona where we're at. We have a bunch of roasters, and to walk into their shops and just to smell those beans, it's absolutely amazing. And, I take my cup of black coffee, always black coffee, with me, and I drink it beforehand. And you said rituals, which is kind of funny. And I didn't really realize it until you said that. But right before I go on a hunt, I click my fingers, my nails 3 times. And it's just something I've always done, like for luck. And when I get to the point in an investigation or when something's going on where I don't have an answer for what's going on, I'll do that too. Kind of like a reality check. And it kind of makes things make sense. Even though I don't know what's going on, it's just like, okay, this is real. I felt that. And this is really happening. So I guess you can call that a ritual. I do know that there are a lot of people that have cleansing kits that they sell with holy water and all that. And fortunately, knock on wood, I've never had to do any of that. I think because I don't mess with demonology. And I've had people that have contacted me wanting me to go with them that do demonology work. And and they sell those, but are they a gimmick? I don't know. Or is it something that's in your mind? I don't know. But I do drink my coffee, and Creepy Coffee's coffee is the best. So, and I do click my nails 3 times, not 4 or 5, but I mean, literally, I'll count it 1, 2, 3. And so it's weird. I can't explain why I do. I've just always done it.
Yeah, I had a muse on the podcast a long time ago, probably a year ago, and he is almost like analyzing me at a point. And I told him about this thing that people on Twitter love to message me about and tell me they developed. And like I had this thing anytime before going down on social, I would like press the tip of my little finger really hard. I don't know what it was, it would sense me, but I haven't been able to do it in so long because a while ago I stabbed myself in the hand, and when I would do it, it would like open the cut and it would hurt more. So now I've started like twirling a pen around my hand, like it's like I'm twirling my hair or something. But
Yeah, it's weird, yeah, because a lot of times you don't even realize it till somebody brings it to your attention. And so, yeah, you caught me. I clicked my nails 3 times.
are you kind of like an advocate for these rituals? Because I'm someone that thinks that if you have superstitions, you have routines, you have rituals, it usually means that you're not like fully present in the moment before you do these things, which is kind of what it helps you recenter. And I think that people that do it without that effect, it's a bit stupid, it's a bit pointless. But if you need that for it to work, go for it. But are you kind of an advocate for these kind of rituals if it gets you into the mood?
I don't think that it gets me in the mood or anything. I just think that I do them because I've always done them and they're just like second nature. I don't know why I click my nails. I'm sure somewhere along the line, growing up or being in the military or something has taught me that. I don't know why. Maybe under stressful circumstances or situations, I do that. I do know coffee or caffeinated beverages is something that if I'm going out at night, I drink it. Just first of all, it's warm and it tastes good. Second of all, you get the caffeine in there. Well, I can't explain that one. That's a tough one.
I want to touch on, I mean, this is going to sound morbid, but the topic of death a little bit. And I'm not going into the other side of the curtain like you investigate, but like people have like a fear of death in a way, but it's
Sure.
quite weird that people have like are so drawn to death in a way and like the horrors and the crime and stuff like that. Like what is it that draws people to to death specifically? Like I know you mentioned about fear and stuff and the horrors and the true crime, but it seems to be death people have more of a fascination with.
I think it's just because of the unknown. Nobody really knows for sure what death is and what happens afterwards. We've all have our reasons and we all have our faiths and what we believe. And up until recently, I questioned, a lot of what happened, afterward because I was brought up to believe a certain way. We have a heaven, we have a hell, and purgatory in the middle. And, you're good, you go up, you're bad, you go down. And then I've had so many people tell me that that doesn't exist. There's just different dimensions, type of things like that. And my curiosity was, And the question that I've always asked, and I finally got a legitimate answer on it. The question was like, well, it doesn't make sense. If there's not a good place and a bad place after you go, I've spent my life trying to be a good person just for myself and my own well being and the people around me to be happy. I deserve to be rewarded for that if there is a reward. Why does somebody who went and raped, pillaged, and burned their entire life and spent it in prison, why do they get the same thing that I get when they did whatever the hell they wanted to do when I sacrificed and I worked hard and I did all these things? And if there's no reward afterward, are we going to be together? And nobody could ever explain that or answer that until we spoke with June Edwards. And because she said she had an experience and she's a medium in the whole nine yards. And she had answered that. And she says, well, I'm just going to answer you in a simple way, Eddie. If you were an asshole here on earth, you're an asshole there in the afterlife. You won't have to deal with them. So, I mean, that was the best answer I ever got. If you're an asshole now, you're an asshole tomorrow. So don't be an asshole. But I think honestly, it's just curiosity. Nobody really knows. And the unknown, it's again, it's what's behind the door, curiosity. I've got to know. And I think that's what the obsession with death is that. And I mean, the horror and everything that comes along with those and stuff like that, that's just society evolving because everything is so reachable and so touchable. I remember in the early 80s, there were these videos when videos first came out. I'm dating myself here now. They were called Faces of Death and they were like banned everywhere. And when we were in high school, if we got one of those, we were like the it place to be for the weekend because they had actual murders and suicides and sitting in the electric chair and watching people die. And back then that was shocking. It was, oh my God, did I really just see that? Now you can Google it and it's everywhere. So I think people's obsession with death is, one, curiosity, they don't know. And two, it's in your face all the time. And with true crime, that's what true crime is. And, somebody died and what's going on with it. So whether it's morbid curiosity or just wanting to know the mind of who did this or that, I think it's all based on curiosity.
Yeah, like you're in that space where your work kind of revolves around death in a way. Like for there to be these horror and true crime stories, there has to be a death, and it's a way that you technically carry death around you then on like a day-to-day basis. But how do you do that without it like darkening you a little bit?
I don't let it get me down or darken me because I'm not doing it for a dark reason. That like the people that deal with demonology and the bad things. And you and I spoke on it earlier, like the police detectives who work on cold cases, they're dealing with the dark side and the demonic side and everything. And I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for answers or people that want to talk or share stories or whatever the case may be. And I think there's a huge difference that me just going out there for curiosity and just talking to grandma for her apple pie recipe, it doesn't bring you down. It doesn't weigh you down. There are times where it's sad and it's depressing, like the Villisca axe murderers, where a family and their children were all murdered in their beds. And on our website, we've went and visited, and there's pictures of it and everything. Stuff like that, it gets depressing and it's sad. But at the same time, you have to separate yourself from that. And you just sit down and you click your nails 3 times and have a cup of creepy coffees and you just do. But for the majority, I don't go looking for the sad or the depressing or the demonic. I just go out there to answer my own questions about what's next or immortality.
I'm a big horror movie fan, and I've got a question for you that came in my mind just there now as you were talking about the kid that you think followed you home, the spirit. What horror movie gets the details right or as close to correct as possible?
I would have to say probably The Shining because
Like,
it's an older movie with Jack Nicholson in it, and it's not so much a horror. I'm going to kill you type of thing, but it's more about a man who starts to lose track of reality and gets obsessed with the hotel and the spirits that are in the hotel. And whether or not that's true, being alone and isolated like that and out in the Colorado mountains in the snow, I think that could actually happen. And the way your mind works, and if you're a little twisted or off kilt, I think you can actually go that way. So I would probably have to say that. And to be honest with you, that's the only movie that ever that I can say honestly scared the hell out of me. Even to this day, if I hear those songs from the theme, I get chills because it's so true to life. I believe it was directed by Stanley Kubrick and just an amazing movie. And if you like horror movies and you like suspenseful, scary ones, watch it if you haven't watched it yet. But The Shining, absolutely.
What about the Paranormal Activity franchise? Is that bullshit?
To a degree, yeah. It's to make money, and there's a lot of things that happen that aren't glorified or would make money, and that's what Hollywood's about is, the movies they make are to make money. So you'll get 10% truth and 90% bullshit.
But like these stories, like they're two almost like polar opposites. Then one is very close to the truth. One it's altered quite a lot for obviously for the story. But in terms of like horror stories, what do you think it is that is more important? Is it the mystery or is it the basis of the truth?
That's an interesting question because I guess it depends on what side of the coin you're on as well. If you're looking at it from a documentary factual point, then you're going to be disappointed in Hollywood. If you're looking at it for entertainment with some sort of truth to it to get you hooked, then you're happy. So I guess it all depends on where you're at. Myself, I like watching a lot of documentaries just simply because you get the truth. And then some of the Hollywood mixes, they're fun to watch, especially if you know the truth. I've also have watched Hollywood movies and then have either read the book, the real book, or watched a documentary about it. And you can see where they've came with a lot of the stuff, but you can also see how far they've gone just for Hollywood. So I guess it depends on which side of the coin you're coming from.
I do see what you mean. To be fair, I am trying to like almost process it in my own mind, but it's kind of like with horror movies, if they can tap into the right emotion of fear and scarcity, like they're winning either way because there's like a load of studies that say that the highest level of dopamine is the relief after being scared. So it's all like, so if you go and watch a horror movie and like you said with The Shining, it scares you to the bones, you'll walk out with a much higher level of dopamine and achieving a lifelong goal, say for example, because it's that relief that you've gone high and then you're coming down again. But it's weird that they play into that thing because you would think in the horror category they would focus more on realism or the truth, and I think that's maybe why. Now that you've mentioned it, maybe why I'm more drawn to documentaries than movies because I almost like those documentaries where it tells you the story of what happened, but it leaves parts out. Like that Hotel Cecil documentary.
Cecil
I
Hotel.
love that because they leave out all the big parts of the information. So you go and you Google it, and there's so much of it. Like those things are
Yeah.
insane. Like that Hotel Cecil. Can you, like, in your opinion, anyway, from what you've done in your experience, do you have any idea what's going on there? Because it generally looks like nobody has any idea what happened.
I've been to Hotel Cecil,
Oh
which is kind
Christ.
of funny. And because yeah, now I've lived in just down the road from there years ago. Plus, we're actually next week, we're going to Los Angeles and we'll be right by the Cecil Hotel. And it's kind of interesting because I've watched the documentaries and I've watched the Netflix specials. And first of all, the Elisa Lamb situation where they found her in the water tanks, that's tragic. I don't care how it happened or why it happened, it's tragic. But if you look at her case specifically, she did suffer from a mental status and a mental issue, which could have and probably did create the psychological things and, the whole nine yards. So that one, if you want to write that off on a science thing, you could easily do that because she had mental health histories, which if you look at her case and you watch the movie or look at The Shining, They're similar. It's mental destruction, mental breakdown, and that's what caused all that to happen. And her reaction in the what do you call it, in the elevator or the lift, you can see her talking, but she's talking to nobody. And in your mind, if you're having mental breakdown, that's a classic sign of what is that,
Yeah.
schizophrenia, I believe. And perhaps I don't know enough about it that maybe that is it. Could it have possibly been something demonic? Absolutely. I'm not saying it's not, because there's been a lot of crazy shit that's happened there. You have, starting from when it was first opened in the 1900s, the guy doing a swan dive out the window, and the medical testings that went on there, and Richard Ramirez lived there, and it's a dark place. It definitely is. Whether or not it's spirit dark, or if it's just so much death has happened there, it's dark. I don't know, but I wouldn't want to stay there. And, the best thing I think that could happen to the Cecil Hotel is if they just tore it down and, let all the souls that are, if there are souls that are fighting there and uncomfortable and not resting, just let them rest. Just let them be. After all this time and all the people that have gone in there and investigated it and did this and did that, it's just let them be. It's, like a lot of the insane asylums that people go and investigate because, let's face it, at the turn of the century, well, shit, even 10 years ago, mental health wasn't a big a priority as it is today. So a lot of those people, they were abused and they were treated very badly. 90%, I would say, well, maybe not 90%, but a good percentage of the people that lived in the Cecil Hotel all suffered from some sort of mental issue, or they were outdoor enthusiasts who didn't have a home, or, type of things like that. So they all had issues, some sort. And it was just as easy to pencil whip them right off the list and say, well, they've got mental issues. Let them go. We'll give them a check. And so,
Yeah.
do I recommend going by to see the Cecil if you're ever near it? Absolutely. Go take a drive by, look at it for yourself, see what you think. And, my opinion, like I said, I've been around Los Angeles for a long time and did a lot of things there, and just let it go. Tear the building down, move on. Time has moved on, and just rebuild, put a parking garage there. God knows they could use it.
I want to round off the episode with a recommendation. My most returning viewers on YouTube are from any kind of paranormal or detective episode I've done. For some reason, people just hook on to those things. So I'll get my recommendation anyway for horror or documentaries. And you mentioned his name, which is the reason why I'm asking, is Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. You get a chance, go and watch that, because that is one creepy fucker, especially.
Yeah,
I want
yeah.
to ask you, in your opinion anyway, what would your recommendation be? Because you're the expert. You're bound to have a good one for us.
If I was to recommend something to watch, I would recommend the movie The Shining. Absolutely. But don't watch it during the day. Don't be a chicken shit. Wait till at night, turn the lights out, sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch it. And if that doesn't scare you or put some sort of anxiety in you, then you're twisted. Documentary wise, I honestly, I've been obsessed and kind of reviewing and reading a lot about Ed Gein. And after watching that, whoo, yeah. And like I said, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but I would recommend watching that off on Netflix. I mean, there is a portion of that is kind of far fetched and they did stretch it out but again, watch that and watch it all the way through and keep an open mind. And their conclusion at the end is really pretty good, and why everything happened, and their approach to filming it I think was really good. So those are the two things I would recommend. That, and I mean, you can always check out our website, creepycoffees.com. We usually have links and stuff on there of movies we recommend or documentaries and different things to do and to see. And I've been kind of slacking on it lately because of health reasons, but there's also like pictures and stuff of past haunts we went to. I have pictures of the Conjuring house that we went and visited. I have photos of Milwaukee, the bar we went and visited that was owned by Al Capone and Shakers. And so there's a lot of things on there too that can guide you into those directions if you want. But The Shining and the Ed Gein story, check them out.